So today's video is going to be talking about Donald Trump's pathway to victory in 2020. This is not to be confused with the 2020 election as if it was held today, where I believe states will eventually vote in the 2020 election, but how Donald Trump can solidify its base and ultimately win re-election in 2020. So some obvious states, we know that the Western Coast is obviously not going to go for Donald Trump. States like Alaska, Utah, Idaho, Montana, and pretty much almost every state in the Midwest would go to Donald Trump handedly. With the exception of Texas, almost all of these would be considered safe Trump, and Texas may be included as well. Going over to parts of the South, we know that these areas are very predominantly Republican, and they will likely land in Trump's column again, especially if he's going for a re-election bid. Illinois is a Democratic island in a sea of red. New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, the D.C., the District of Columbia, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, pretty much the entire Northeast is Democratic. So looking at the map, we have 193 electoral votes up for grabs, with 182 allocated to the Democratic candidate by default, and 163 for Donald Trump. Some more obvious ones, Donald Trump will likely hold on to Arizona and Georgia, going for a pathway to re-election. These are two predominantly Republican states that he lost a number of margins in. And looking at the county maps, they are by far more Democratic than they were back in 2012. However, this makes up for it in states like Iowa and Ohio, which both went to Barack Obama back in 2012. That went for Donald Trump by bigger margins than both Arizona and Georgia did, especially in the state of Iowa for Donald Trump. So these states, obviously, Trump would need to hold on to them if he's looking for a pathway to re-election. The states that he can afford to lose are states like New Mexico and Virginia. These are predominantly Democratic states, and it would be pretty much well known for a Democratic victory here. Really not much contesting that. Going up to the state of Maine, we know that predominantly the state of Maine and that one electoral vote would go to the Democratic candidate by a considerable margin. Looking at Donald Trump's map, he has 214 electoral votes, and his pathway to victory goes through the Rust Belt yet again and winning North Carolina and Florida. I do not see him expanding on where he won back in 2016, except for the states of Nevada and New Hampshire. Other than that, I do not see a possibility for a Trump victory, so with that, I'm going to give Colorado and Minnesota to the Democratic candidate. This now limits down the number of possibilities for a Trump pathway to re-election. If the Democrat sweeps the Rust Belt, then they come very close to winning the election, and they're 2 electoral votes away, which is why the Rust Belt is crucial for him to winning re-election. Down in Florida, after what we saw with the entire gun violence situation, what happened in Florida, that's not good for the president, but in order to win re-election, he would need to hold on to Florida. Another state he needs to hold on to, North Carolina, which puts him very close to the 270 needed to win, but it's not necessarily the most likely scenario. Going over to the state of Nevada, it would be very, very close compared to where other states might go, so we're going to leave that one as a pure toss-up as of right now. The state of Nebraska, he would definitely need to hold on to the 2nd Congressional District in order to win re-election, because I believe that this one will come down to mere electoral votes. Up in Maine, he will not only need to hold on to it, but hold on to it by a considerable margin, because if Maine is going to by a smaller margin, the Democrat will probably win in New Hampshire, so he's going to need to definitely appeal to Northeastern voters, and especially after his drug-infested den comment, yes, that still haunts him today. Going to the Rust Belt again, pure toss-ups. I'm going to start making a characteristic and part of the Rust Belt to talk about why Donald Trump's path to re-election has been dwindling. If you look at the state of Michigan, his approval ratings are not so high there. In order for him to win re-election, he can afford to lose the state of Michigan, which is his most likely scenario looking at the electoral map. He's probably going to come down to winning by a narrow margin with specific states, and it's not going to necessarily look the best for an incumbent president. Going over to New Hampshire, it's becoming increasingly more Democratic, especially what we've seen with the 2017 and 2018 special elections. I'd expect that one going to the Democrat. But Donald Trump's pathway to re-election relies in these 3 key states. He's probably not going to win Michigan again, looking at the approval ratings. But anything's possible. But looking at his key and crucial pathway to re-election, he's not going to gain more electoral votes than he did back in 2016. He's not going to get New Hampshire. He's definitely not going to get Virginia. Other possibilities include Minnesota and Colorado, but it's going to be very hard for him to do so. Looking at the map, he would likely have to carry a pathway through the Rust Belt, putting him at 290 electoral votes while the Democrat carries Nevada, or the Democrat carries Pennsylvania, Trump carries Wisconsin, and he wins re-election. Or let's say that the Democrat carries Wisconsin, Trump carries Pennsylvania and Nevada. That puts him over the top as well. But carrying Nevada alone would not put him over the top. The Democrat will win 272 to 266. Let's say you flip Wisconsin, as I did before, and Nevada, Trump still wins. Pretty much, he can afford to lose Nevada, but he cannot afford to lose both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Looking at the final electoral map, 270 electoral votes for Donald Trump to 268 for the Democrat. This would probably be his likely path to re-election by a narrow margin, and those faithless electors will make all the difference. Thank you guys for watching this video, and comment down suggestions for other videos.